Hi, everyone. We're just started a little early to let everyone in, and we will be starting at close on 12 Eastern time. So welcome to the session. Give us a few moments and we'll be starting to talk about brand quite quickly. For those of you who just joined in, we're just waiting a couple minutes before we get things started. So I can see we have more and more people joining in, but we'll be starting shortly as soon as we have more people joining, and we'll start pretty close on noon. And that's noon Eastern time, because I know we're all across Canada today. I can see some colleagues in BC. I can see some here in Alberta as well. So we will start shortly. Okay, we have more people joining in, but we'll get started just to be respectful of everyone's time. My name is Sarah Short, and I'm hosting this session today on sort of chairing with Simone, who's our speaker on brand strategy, the Agile approach. First, thank you to Key Media Lexpert Canadian Lawyer as our sponsor, as always, as our platinum sponsor for 2022. And I'll just do a quick intro on Simone before she starts speaking. For those of you joining in today, we welcome questions throughout the session. So please put them in the Q&A or in the chat if you'd like. And you can ask them throughout. We'll be monitoring the questions throughout the brand session, and we'll be answering them depending on if it's in between or at the end of the session. So welcoming our speaker today, Simone Hughes. She's the Director of Business Development and Marketing for Gowling WLG Canada. She leads a high-performance team focused on globally integrated experience-based solutions for clients. She has over 25 years of experience with harnessing brand, evolving brands, vision, values, positioning, synergizing engaged client-focused teams, strategic planning, integrating marketing technologies, creating leading-edge business development and marketing training, and developing content marketing, thought leadership, client education programs, and media relations. And she's here today to talk to us all about brand. So for those of you who've gone through a brand change, or you're going through a brand change, or you're interested in it, or you just want to, discover how can I take the brand I have now and make it what it is, Simone is here to tell us all about it. So take it away, Simone.
Hi, everyone, and thank you. Let me just call up my slides and see if I'm sharing the right screen. How does that look? Sarah?
Looks good.
All right. All right. Well, hello. I am starting to feel old now after that introduction. So let's get on with it. Today, we're going to talk about brand strategy and agile approach. And feel free, write your any comments in the chat, questions. If you want to ask a question right away, just jump in. That's fine. Or if it's one that you could leave to the end, leave to the end. So, okay. Today, we're going to try to help you and your law firm face the future. In a post-pandemic world, a lot has gone on in the last 2 years, and we're seeing increasing research to show that if you continue on in the same way with your brand, you may not be as differentiated, as appealing, or driving loyalty and revenue as you think. So how can we get that train back on its track? And how can you, in any sort of situation, we all know as legal marketers, we are at various levels of influence in our law firm. In some law firms, you are at the pinnacle and seated at that executive table, influencing strategy and business selection. And in some cases, you might just be out of that room and ask the odd question and left to figure out how can you exert influence in a way that drives at least some of this branding strategy and implementation. So we're going to call that an agile manner, because more often than not, it is not perfect in a law firm. The other thing is that my sound sometimes goes in and out. I have little gremlins in my computer, and if that's the case, someone's got to jump in and tell me that my sound's no longer going through. So the learning objectives today, and there is a lot of information in my slides, so I can talk about that later. I've given it to you just as background information in some cases. We can dive in and go as deep as you want, or just stay at the top. So what is a brand? It's very important to start with that question so that we're all on the same page. Determine the elements of a strong law firm branding framework. What are all the elements involved here? And how can you audit and assess where your firm's brand strength is? And how can you learn how to evolve and strengthen it where you can, where you have the tools, where you have the control, and where you have the power of persuasion to do so? And then develop that plan, that strategy and plan to drive the best thing for your firm. So just to pick up on where I've come from, right now I'm a global co-leader of BDM marketing for Gowling WLG. So we're a global law firm. We have, 1,400-ish lawyers and 19 offices around the world. At the same time, I'm also a sessional lecturer at the University of Calgary Faculty of Law. So I teach business development and marketing to third-year law students at U of C. And that's been interesting in the last couple of years, because I'm actually in Toronto now. I moved from Calgary to Toronto, and so I've been, during the pandemic, going by Zoom, but now that they're in person, I'm in Zoom, and it's interesting. So I have been Chief Marketing Officer at Field Law, which is a regional firm, Alberta and the North. I call it the bowling alley of Canada. And they only had about 150 lawyers, so pretty much developed their brand and other things right from that kind of scratch. For a narrower audience. And then I've also been Chief Marketing Officer and National Director of ED for BLG. And so in that capacity as well, undertook a brand refresh and evolution as well. So this is my third law firm, new brand refresh. So I've also been adjunct professor teaching marketing, advertising, PR courses, and have been in professional services my entire life. So worked at Canadian Tire, iconic Canadian brand, and Bank of Montreal for about 18 years, again, iconic brand. And the funny thing is I got into branding at Bank of Montreal, being first the corporate controller of all marketing and public relations. So I started to learn the brand from what it costs and the elements of it, and then moved into the marketing and the communications of it. So today's agenda: what's a brand, why it's important. We're going to look at a branding framework, how to audit and assess the strength of your brand, approaches for evolving it and then maintaining it, and then summary and questions. So right now, I would like you to all go into the chat box and give me a short phrase that best describes what you think a brand is. Whenever I interview people to work for me in whatever law firm place I am, that's one of the questions I ask people, just to know where their level of sophistication is in branding. So go into the chat screen and say, if I said, what's a brand? What would you say to me? So please go ahead, type it in. Don't be afraid. It's all good answers, and it's probably all part of the answer. All right, I'm not seeing anyone typing. Type away. We've got shy people. Who you are as a firm, a story. Nice. Interesting. I like that one. Anyone else? A brand is a promise. Yes, a brand is a promise. Very good. What else would you say to people when they say, what's a brand? Why should I care? What's a brand? Anyone else? Oh, I got Q&A. Oh, chat was disabled. Okay, Sarah, how come chat is disabled? People can't type in. Ask you to type in and you can't type in. Brand is who other people say you are. That's very good. Actually, that's the image. So the brand is what you think you want people to think you are, and the image is the perception of your brand. So that's the image. What differentiates you from your competitors and provides a meaningful value proposition to clients? That's very, very sophisticated. The company's value proposition, yep, that's part of it. Yep. So it is a big thing. A brand is not just a logo, which is something that drives me a little bit nuts when people tell me a brand is just a logo, and when they're working on branding, they're just creating a new logo or a new name. So just so that we could level set some key definitions. And I used to get hot and bothered about defining things, but since I've moved into law for the last 15 years and people tell me I'm not allowed to use the word marketing half the time, or sales, because they're bad words, and we say business development's all of it, I'm less bothered. But for our presentation, marketing is really the managerial process of all of these things, including business development, which is a subset of it. And brand is a part too, and it's even bigger than the marketing part. A brand is holistic umbrella over everything. And the brand image, as I've just said, is actually what is in the minds of people. So I may want a brand to be X. If you perceive the brand to be Y, that's the image. And the gap actually helps us understand if the brand that we want it to be is a strong brand, which means the brand and the people's image are almost aligned, or if the brand and the image are far apart, and that's probably a weak brand. So brand is a promise. A good brand differentiates, it's relevant, it's authentic, memorable, and it drives long-term loyalty and revenue. And the image is what the stakeholders think your brand is. A weak brand is that big gap between the brand you want and what they've got in their heads. And a strong brand is one that's aligned. And not only aligned, it's driving loyalty. So it's not good enough to be memorable, to be authentic. A brand today has to be fact-based. It has to be based on what clients want. And not only what they want, because of course, if you asked a client what they want, they would say, cheap price. I don't want to pay a lot. Well, that's nice, but that's not going to help you out. So a brand has to be something clients want. Price is part of it, but it really has to be a distinguishing part, one that found out through research actually drives loyalty, is important to your clients. So finding the best opportunities, I call the green space. You've heard of white spaces, and that's opportunities. But I like to say we want to really find the green space, and the brand is something that helps make that happen. So it is the Venn diagram and the intersection of what is your business and firm strategy, what are the strengths and passions of your lawyers in your firm, what are the market opportunities out there, where do you have great habits? Where are you an industry specialist? Where are your services amazing? Do you have a niche area? If you factor all these things in, you will find what space you can occupy that others maybe can't or don't want to or are not in at this point in time, that you can then lay your resources behind and become known for and make money. So green space is not a whole bunch of opportunities you could pursue, but which ones you're actually going to turn into money, into revenue, into loyalty, into profitability. So that's what we're about, is to find these best opportunities. A brand, many people and many law firms and lawyers think that, we manage a logo on a color screen. And the actual truth of it is, the brand comes from great business strategy. You can't build a strong brand without the business strategy. The business strategy leads to brand strategy, which then leads to all the visualization of all the other pieces, which we'll come to. What really excites me today is that there's a lot of research now coming out that is starting to connect the elements of brand to the financials. You could say, you know, law firms don't always believe the research from other industries. They'll say, oh, that's that industry. This is different for us, you know, brand, whatever. The truth of it is that there's a lot of connections starting to play out now in the legal industry. Not only do we have our own better facts, our own analytics on what we do on the brand and how that's panning out on retaining, growing, and acquiring clients, but you have organizations like Thomson Reuters who have, you know, bought the Sharp Legal Acrotas brand survey and have started to connect it to, you know, the old Peer Monitor, or now it's called Financial Insights, starting to connect the market insights or brand survey into the financial insights. Now, this is seminal in the law industry, because prior lawyers could say, oh, you know, that's the other industry. But when you're starting to look at your own clients, your own general counsel, and what they say on your brand, and being connected to actual financials and which law firms are, you know, growing, which are not potentially, and it tracking back to, you know, in this case, at the beginning of a brand survey is asking about awareness. That to me is very exciting. That puts us starting to get closer to that executive table. If we can show that what we do or what we help facilitate or what we help enable or build foundationally is actually going to lead to financial improvement and growth, that's a big deal. Whereas before, you just say things and they may go in and out of people's ears. So a strong brand inspires and focuses. It attracts not only clients, but the next generation of talent. They want to know that they work for a special brand or a law firm. It retains, attracts clients, and builds loyalty, and continues to unify your firm. Instead of letting it dilute like a weak brand, a strong brand builds unification and integration. So it sustains you through cycles and sometimes reputational setbacks. And again, I can't say too many times, and I guess I keep tightening it, drives loyalty and revenue. Now, where we get this from is Acrotas in you know, many of their surveys start to pull out the marketing funnel, like the steps it takes for engagement. And now connecting it to their financials are telling us that that top of mind awareness, so the first question that Acrotas Thomson Reuters asks is, you know, name the top 5 firms that come to mind. Those top 5 firms coming to mind is correlating to revenue. So in the connecting of the brand survey with the financials, 81 out of 1, so 81% of the time that top of mind awareness brand is being proven to connect to a law firm's financials, one that's growing or higher than others. So this is extremely powerful for me, and more powerful too if you do subscribe to Thomson Reuters, that you can actually pull apart what does awareness mean and look at what you can do to better enable that. The interesting part, though, is that you know, things have changed. The pandemic has thrown a lot of different, you know, things in our play. We've had to digitize more quickly. You know, it's hard to be competitive. There's so much clutter now, so many articles, so much content, so many things being done. And clients' expectations, for the most part, have risen. Pre-pandemic, you know, you may be okay differentiating yourself on just understanding your client and potentially the sector that they're in. But we're finding out as well that not only awareness is correlating, but to actually move into the favorability and consideration, you need to have more than just sector knowledge. You need to start operating as a team. We need to provide commercial advice that's practical, easy to use and implement, and immediately implementable. So how do we get a brand to do all those things now? How does that bar, rise up? I'll just look at personality. That's good too. So one of and I'm just going to warn you before I show you the next slide, I use this next slide as a shock and awe kind of tool, because when I'm teaching my class in business development marketing to lawyers, they don't often realize that a brand screens, helps guide a number of things, almost everything that a law firm or any business does. So I call this my shock and awe business of law or the system of law slide. And basically, if you do this well, if you figure out the law firm brand experience, it then presents a screening mechanism for almost every decision that law firm makes. The culture, the reputational aspects, who you're going to target as influencers, how you're going to serve, what kind of experience you're going to give, what kind of practices and sectors you're going to select. A good, strong research brand actually influences all these decisions, which is a good thing, because what happens is it makes all these things start to be decisioned in a consistent manner. And the more consistent a brand is, the stronger it is. The less consistent it is, the more diluted it is. So you will all be able to relate to, you have HR here, you have operations here, you have IT here, you have lawyers here, you've got potentially offices everywhere, you've got individual lawyers, and they're all doing their own thing. Well, if we had a strong brand and they had in their mind what clients really want, a few, a handful of themes, then every time they go to do something, make a decision, figure out advice, what is the type of legal solution? How am I going to frame that solution for my client? How am I going to serve them? How am I going to do my website? How am I going to do that social media? That brand influences in a consistent way all those decisions, and you're going to lift the firm and pull it in just by doing some simple things. This is the most complicated thing you could do if you could infiltrate and persuade and have a voice in all these pieces of a law firm, but we all know that's a very, very difficult thing to do unless the law firm decides from a holistic and strategic perspective that that's what they're going to focus on, that they believe that defining the brand experience is going to pay off in loyalty and ultimately revenue and growth and sustainable growth throughout time, then you will get this. So some law firms are there, not many, probably only a handful around the world. But you, whether you're a small law firm, a mid-size, a large, a global, a niche, a boutique, we all are able to find something that we could start to influence today and fix today, and then move on and fix something tomorrow. So while it looks complicated, as I always say to my people, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So complicated, we need to simplify. So how do we simplify? What are the things that drive this strong brand approach? Now, many of us start at that brand strategy. And we start to look at, okay, what's our positioning statement, the story, the value proposition, our personality, and we move to the rest of the stuff. Brand strategy starts with business strategy. And that's another weakness that law firms often have, is they don't often have a brand strategy, a business strategy, sorry. They have maybe a list of tactics or actions that they want to pursue. They have in their mind they want to do X and Y. But many of them have probably not looked at their entire financials, done a competitive scan, looked at the economics, the markets, their own analytics, their lawyers, the lawyer groupings, the lawyer sectors, the practices, measuring each of those things and saying, okay, let's look at what we do for a living and let's decide which areas that we want to maintain Which areas do we think there's potential that we want to grow? And maybe there are things we are doing today that we really shouldn't do anymore. They're out of style, they're no good, no one wants them, and how can we divest of those things? So a brand strategy, for it to be its strongest, starts with a strong business strategy. And that's where a lot of us either are not included, maybe don't even have access to it, or, it's just not there. And so sometimes we have to start, planting that seed. If the law firm doesn't have a business strategy, what are the simple things that we could do to start kickstarting that? Even if it's you grabbing financials, if you have access to them, and starting to model what sectors and practices are strong, comparing them to your competition in whatever office jurisdictions that you're in. How to even say, do we have a mission? Do we have a mandate? What do we do for a living? What is our vision? Where do we want to be in 5 years? You could start talking to senior leaders and start those conversations going. Many law firms have values, and today, more important than ever, is to have a purpose, is to have something around ESG, EDI, etc. Once you have that business strategy, and so this is our framework, we can then start moving to brand strategy. One of the most important things to do is the positioning statement. I don't know if you've had a lot of experience with positioning statements, and I have given you my template that I've used over the years. But that to me is critical. We can do a positioning statement and we can control that. We can do it. We can ask the questions and we can get that done. We can do a positioning statement for the whole firm. We could do it for an office. We could do it for sectors. We could do it for practices. We can even do it for individuals. And in fact, I encourage all of you to practice on yourselves. You can do your own positioning statement to say, what do you want out of your career, either within legal marketing or outside of legal marketing? Where is your positioning statement today? And what benefit do you give? It's actually a very strong place to start, because it's not an easy thing to do. Positioning statements are hard. From that positioning statement, you can start to then build out the story. So some of you said it's about a story, differentiating what's the value proposition, how do we create a personality, and the architecture of our brand. And then it gets to the, where most people see the brand is on the brand expression pieces. Where is the logo, the signature, all of those pieces of information, the identifiers, pictures, imagery, graphics, icons, even the font that you use. You know that there's a book out on law firm fonts, which ones you have to use to submit appeals, for example, and which kind of font in the legal industry communicates the best. And it's actually, I've been through that exercise a couple of times. It's fascinating to go in, but the moral of the story is that all of these details contribute to either creating a stronger brand or a weaker brand. So once you've got your foundation of your strategy in terms of business and brand, and you start to visualize that strategy, all of those pieces need to scream the brand strategy. So for example, I don't know if any of you have seen Gowling advertising and copy. You will notice that we've been using caps, cap letters, bold caps. So what does bold caps mean to you? Basically means someone shouting at you. Now, is that what we want for a law firm? Aren't we supposed to be more on the relationship type of the business and collaborate and listen to our clients? Well, our content screams at clients. So, if I were to start to align our headlines in terms of look with our brand strategy, it would be perhaps to not make it bold and not make it uppercase all over the place. We often think that the brand in our strong aligned way is about more of the look on the items, the architecture, the design, the graphics. It is actually the words, though, that also need to have a very strong part to play in the brand. If your brand is X and your words are Y, so for example, say you're service and client focused. And yet when you read any of your copy on your website, it's like, we're the best. We won #1 award. We're this. We're telling you that. We know this. Is that aligned? So if your words are not aligned to your brand strategy and your look, then you're going to be out of alignment and you're diluting your brand and you're not living your strongest brand. All of these things count. Now, say you've got the brand strategy, you've got the brand expression, you've got your words all lined up, your lexicon, you've educated everyone in the firm on how to be aligned to this and the reasons why you do it. And yet, you go to someone visits your office and you've got garbage all over the place. And when they meet a receptionist, the reception ignores them. So then the actual follow through is actually even more important than the planning that you put into all this stuff. So the follow through, the internal brand, what your partners, your associates, your business services team members are doing and saying, and how they're collaborating, how they're feeling. Are they feel like they're paid properly or being listened to? All of those things as well factor. And a brand isn't just external facing, it's internal facing and external facing. So if there's any gaps, it starts to dilute and you're not living your strongest brand. So this is the framework of a strong brand. And if all those bubbles were on the same line, I call it a Syzygy. And a Syzygy is a celestial alignment of planets, which when that happens, they irradiate glowing, rings. And in fact, funny enough, in June, I believe, last June, a couple of weeks ago, we had one rare Syzygy in our planetary system where 5 planets aligned. And so I thought that was kind of clever, but that's just me. I'm a little bit of a brand nerd. So research and discovery to understand brand and business strategy. Figure out your brand strategy and then figure out how you're going to express that brand and create the standards and guidelines and educate, and then follow through, maintain, and flex. It's a tall order to get all these bits and pieces done. So anything you can do to first edit, audit, assess where you think you are on this continuum, and then what you could do to start moving the needle on this will help. Interestingly enough, I've learned recently, I show this slide to my class, is that a statement of purpose of a corporation, and I know we're law firms, but it tends to, our clients feel that we should have the same direction. We used to say that you exist to serve shareholders and to maximize profit. That's all that you did. You're a for-profit business. That's the goal. A number of years ago, top companies in America, around the world, got together to restate the purpose of corporate. And this was after Enron and scandals and, people walking away with organizational monies. A company must balance the needs of and commitments to all stakeholders, including customers, clients, employees, partners, associates, suppliers, and local communities, and not just the shareholders. Has your law firm shifted their thinking? Has your law firm still eat what you kill, all for my pocket, just for the firm, maximize profit? Because if it hasn't, things have changed. I don't know how many of you do RFPs. We are continually getting more and more RFPs that ask for our policy on ESG, EDI, our purpose. What do we stand for? What are we doing? What's our giving strategy? And in fact, yesterday I was asked by a client. So this is a very important part of one of the first bubbles in terms of figuring out the business strategy. Another interesting new concept in branding is that, for many of you, went and learned to go brand initially, wherever it was, we were generally told you can't confuse the clients. You got to just have a minimum amount of promises or things that clients value, and that's it. One is the best. If you're going to three, too many. And so, when we market something like a Tim Hortons coffee, there really isn't too many things to say. Or Coca-Cola, it's about happiness. So there's one single memorable thought that gets played up and used through their branding execution. But does that same concept of minimizing those stated promises or values work for us, a law firm, complex professional services organization? And in some cases, you're full service or you're multi-service. You may be multi-jurisdictional, multilingual, different types of law. Does it work to have just, one brand promise? Will it work for all your sectors, all your practices, all your lawyers? Well, the answer is no. And some research has come up from Bain, and Bain are the creators of the NPS, or Net Promoter Score. They have gone through a B2b Value Pyramid, which is this thing on the right. You can look it up later. And said, you know what? We have found 42 elements of value. And we've stacked them up or layered them like a birthday cake or a holiday cake. And at the bottom are foundational or functional values. Moving up, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is more of the service attributes. How can we help our general counsel or our clients achieve individual value from our interaction with them? And how could we inspire our clients, collaborating with them to potentially do something great for maybe the communities they serve on top of everything else? So Bain and Company have said, you know what? A layered brand, we think, could work better for high-end, complex professional services organizations like law firms. They speak on multiple levels of value. And what's really good about this is you've probably heard from your practices and sectors, or even your provinces in Canada, if you're a Canadian law firm, it's like, oh, we're unique, and oh, no, we're unique over here. Well, when you have a number of brand promises, you can then dial up some that are more relevant to one area and dial up others for others. The trick is that all 5 of them, or 6 or 3 or whatever you decide to have, a small basket of elements, are something that would naturally flow through the firm's DNA. They're ones that you researched, they're client valued, they're things that you can actually do and want to do, and they actually correlate to driving loyalty. So strong brands speak to people from multiple levels of value. They have the foundational needs, the basic needs, they have service needs, individual needs, and inspirational needs. And choosing the set of elements is something that you could do to help your firm advance in its sophistication of branding. Now, if you did this, does it actually work? And there is research, again, to show that a layered brand consistently outperforms a non-layered brand. So not to go wild and have like 20 elements, because that's way too many, but not to have 1 or 2. So depending on how complex you are, how big you are, how many areas that you serve, having, in this case, 4-ish plus elements tends to give you a higher Net Promoter Score. And what we know from a higher Net Promoter Score is if people are promoting you, that means they're loyal to you. And if they're loyal to you, the correlation is that they'll give more revenue to you, or a larger share of their legal wallet. So it gives you higher NPS, which then drives revenue. So a layered brand is something that a law firm brand needs. Strong, complex brands speak to clients from multiple layers of need and value, and businesses do well on these multiple elements. Now, when you look at law firms, where are they generally? If we look at the bottom table stakes, so we're professional, we're experts, we're compliant, we all got our bar calls. Those are the bottom elements of a layer that law firms tend to dial up more than the other layers. The other layers are harder to figure out. Because we all know that you can't even get in the game with clients unless you are experts, unless you're called to the bar, unless you're perceived as having all this professionalism. But those things are not going to differentiate you. A strong brand is one that's differentiated and memorable. And not only that, that what differentiates you are the things that are going to drive clients' loyalty, the promotion, the net promoter score. And that's where you need the research. You need client research to tell you what those things are. So which pieces of these layers are more important to your clients than others. And of those that are important, which ones actually correlate to the NPS score and therefore drive loyalty and revenue. So all of this brand work, the key to it is research. We need to gather as much intelligence as you can. If you don't have business strategy in the firm, start to make assumptions. Start to look at your own firm intelligence, who buys products, services, who's your decision makers. Are you a personal law firm? Are you a niche law firm? Are you a B2b law firm? Who are your clients? Who are the decision makers? Who are the influencers on the decision makers? How can you get a profile of those people? How do you know your industry, your competitors, and your own analytics? Where are you making money? What goes together? Just don't fall into analysis paralysis with your brand and never get out of understanding and into action. An agile method is understand enough to take some action to see if it works, to then understand a bit more, to take more action, to test it, to understand more, and then I call it a step function. So moving on to the positional statement, and I understand this might be a lot of loading on many of you, or maybe it's not. Maybe I'm going too slow. You could tell me that in the chat box. But one of the key things that I think is most important, I mean, if you don't have a business strategy, if you can't even get that information out of your law firm, the best thing you could do is take a stab at creating a positioning statement for the law firm. And generally, positioning statements are too broad, not really targeted, and trying to be all things to all people. Like, we're full service, we'll do anything for you. Well, that is not a strong positioning statement, because none of us do that. What you could do to help the law firm is to really look at this, define what kind of law firm you are, and go through the questions. Our firm, or you can, this can go right down to the lawyer, but at the higher brand level, our firm serves who? We don't serve everyone. Like, look at your financials. Who do you mostly serve? And target. Even though you may serve a smattering of a whole bunch of things, that's all clutter. Look at what the bigger segments or groups that the law firm is servicing, and are those the ones that you want to keep and grow? Or if they're not, then they shouldn't be on the target list. So really try to target, get people to really focus on who those targets are. Individuals, small, mid, regional, large, global, institutions, government. What is it? Get people to put a stake in the ground and get people to really even dig further. Even though they're the target clients, in what sectors, for what practices, really get in there. And then the hardest part of all is to define what differentiates you. Because most people will say, oh, it's my expertise. Well, no, it's not. That's your feature. Your expertise is what you do. It's a feature. You need to help your law firm turn that feature into a benefit. So each feature can be turned into benefit. So if you're an expert, so what? A marketing tool you can use is just say, so what, until you can't answer the question anymore. So what if you're the biggest expert? Every law firm has experts in the field. So what is it that your expertise actually has some unique benefit for clients? And when you start to drill under those covers, you're going to help the lawyers discover their benefits and not just keep listing their features. So you try to drill in and what differentiates you. So because we're being sponsored by Key Media and Lexpert, I'll say that I blogged for a Canadian Lawyer for 4 years. I have, created probably 40 articles on a whole bunch of different topics, and one of them was on positioning. So if you Google Simone Hughes, positioning, Canadian lawyer, you will find my article on positioning. And what's interesting is positioning typically just takes two ideas. So if you want to look at the competition, say, what are your differentiating pieces or services or experiences? Maybe it's being accessible. Maybe it's to frame solutions. I have figured out a method where you can put all these different positioning elements down and then rate yourself against your key competitors and see where, if you're in a space, which is good, well, it's the first good step because that space may not be relevant to clients. So then once you find a space where you may be out by yourself, and if that space is actually what clients want, you're starting to hone in on some of the things that differentiate you. And when you go through your next client survey, you can insert a question that tries to get the heart of that, whether clients do differentiate. And if you get their NPS score and correlate those things, you can understand whether that place where you differentiate here is actually driving loyalty and revenue for you. And so when you do those things, you can hone in. So if you can't do the research, you're going to do a lot of guessing and assuming. And then when you can get to research, you start substituting the facts with your assumptions. So positioning is really important. That brings us back to our diagram here. You hear all the elements of strong brand. How can you audit your firm? Go in, tear this apart, even take the slide and go tick X, make assumptions, assess where you are, and then figure out what you can do, what you and your team can do. How can you influence and affect change? And start to create a small plan that you can evolve, improve, and expand over time with success metrics that shows what you've made how you've made a difference. Planning is essential. I can't underline that enough. Just even having it scratched out on the back of an envelope is better than having no plan because you'll have no future. So planning is essential. It has to be applicable, and it doesn't really matter what stage your firm is in, whether it has no plan, the most sophisticated plan. You can jump in and either understand what the plan is and then take your slice of it for the brand, or even help the firm with its business strategy if that's needed. As an exercise, apply it to yourself. How many of you have a 5-year career plan? You can test all these theories in here on yourself first. Do you have a 5-year career plan? How would you put that plan forward? What's your positioning statement? And where are your benefits? And it might actually shine a different light than you thought on where your potential is to grow and go potentially. Change management, this is the hardest part of all of this branding, is that you may find things, you probably will find things that the firm could do better, your team could be doing better, you could be doing better. The hardest thing is to change. Changing things is not popular, and I could tell you that because I've been through a ton of politics, a ton of unrest. The most meaningful thing, you're trying to help people personally, you're helping teams, you're helping firms, and there are people who do not want to change for whatever reasons they may be. This is the hardest thing. Like personally, I have found that your sponsor, your boss, your mentors, you need someone who's got your back. And so find that, before you rock too many boats and change things. But change management is a skill in itself. Planning helps because then you could get people agreeing to the incremental changes that you want to bring on. But it does define a course. Not that you can't change it if you don't want to, but planning gets you going. It gives you the confidence and it gets things. So don't lose your way. I'm starting to summarize here. I think this is not the easiest thing in the world, but don't lose your way. Resilience is everything. Your vision, your guide, contextualizing. I think even a little bit of planning goes a long way. Articulating your goals And you know what? The firms that we have seeded and Flow didn't have the vision or business strategy or a strong brand, or weren't bothered to be guided by it. They lost their way. Don't lose yours. You can affect change. Branding drives loyalty, drives revenue. It is an extremely important thing to focus on. That's all I have for today. We have 10 minutes left for any questions or comments, and I will stop sharing my screen. Hi, Sarah. You can always contact me privately. You can send me email, or Sarah will be distributing the slide deck too.
Yeah, we have some questions coming in here now, and thank you so much for that presentation. We have a question about how are you able to convince management? And I think that's to the sort of the change aspect that you mentioned at the end.
That was really hard, but in law firms, I use what lawyers use with their own clients: precedents and evidence, right? So we're undergoing a very unique change at Gowling, which of course I can't disclose, and there was little precedence for it. But I did had evidence from other industries that have done similar things and have posted strong growth results. And so starting to use that and, you know, incrementally celebrate small successes, I've been able to gain more and more credibility such that they believe more and more, and they're willing to, you know, give me more credibility, include me more, and move along. So we've been undertaking change for now 2 years. Started with client research, which was very, you know, we went out to thousands of client contacts. We gathered a bunch of understanding of what clients want, how it drives our own law firm client stickiness. And so starting to use that as the basis and foundation. So now I have my evidence to then move forward with our goals. But it's not easy. And of course, a pandemic and a war, you know, in Russia hasn't helped, or war in Ukraine. So I find things move a whole lot slower than you ever thought all the time. And law firms, it is about like small successes and communicating. You know, I learned from prior law firms, I probably didn't communicate enough to my people, to the teams, to all the multi-leader cascades that we have to figure out in our law firm. So precedents and evidence and lots of patience.
Perfect, thanks. We have another question here. Where would you suggest new marketers start in the branding process?
New marketers first have to really understand this. So the starting point is probably either to go online, read books. I mean, I probably have a ton of books, old and new, on what is a brand, how do you do brand, what are legal brands. So you being the go-to expert on branding is a good start for getting into the branding process. But then, you know, if you want to look at incremental change, the most effective information that you could have is starting to look at where you sit in terms of awareness next to your competitors. And there is research out there to help you generally with that. And start to build some facts, so that facts will then help you with the next stages. I mean, you can also start, if you're in a new firm, you're new to marketing, just take an audit, pull all the digital, print, like whatever materials you have. I like to create a mood board. You could probably, let me see my wall here. I just have a little one right now. So, I'm going to make you all dizzy. But I just print things out and I slap them all over the wall to get a really sense on, am I consistent? Have I got a strong brand? Do I look the same? Do I sound the same? Have I got the tone? So I think the start is just taking an audit and looking at it, understanding, you know, what you can do in that brand continuum slide I'll be giving you, and then small incremental improvements.
You mentioned books. One of the questions that came in is, are there any books you'd recommend for anyone who wants to take a deep dive or how to sell the Agile approach to stakeholders, managing partners generally?
There are a lot of really good brand books, and what I'll do before I give the slideshow to Sarah is I'll put a biography of my top resources for you. To recommend one actually depends on what you really want. And the Agile approach, I think, is my own. I'm not sure there's a book on it, so I'll look for some books. But I think that's my school of hard knocks. I'm not trying to do everything all the time, but really starting small and building out success.
Thanks. Could you provide some examples of strong law firm brands in your opinion? And then maybe why you feel that they're strong law firm brands?
I'm not sure if I want to do that. Let me think. It's a really good question, because it's difficult to assess the strength of a law firm brand unless I know the quantitative data that they're using. Like, who are they real? You could look at something and say, oh, that's such a good ad, or that looks like such good branding because they're all consistent, except they're not making any money, right? So you'll often see these rankings of websites and all that. It's like, so, unless you understand that law firms target clients and whether they're actually growing and maintaining and acquiring the type of clients they set out in their business plan to do, you can't assess the strong brand. So let me think about that. And again, in Sarah's notes, I'm going to try to find a law firm that has stated, what their objectives are and actually show their profit against, or their revenue or whatever metric against that. Because you can't really assess it unless you know those things. Otherwise, you're going off your gut. Oh, I like the ad. I think it looks great. It all looks consistent. Well, so what if they can't, engage anyone in a matter?
Yeah, and you're only kind of looking at everything from the outside and not really what's on the inside of everything. And like you said, with different websites, you can do the rankings on that, but it's only one level of ranking unless you're getting all of that data.
That's right. Because, people say to me, oh, we got thousands of hits for this article. And I go, so what? Are those the clients that you want? And of those clients that you want that saw it, are they going to the next stage? Like, was your plan for that ad to get them from awareness to favorability to asking a question or to, to growing at some point? So, you need to tie it together and call it total attribution.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. Well, I don't know that there are any other questions coming in. I'm taking a look. I don't see any others. So I think for now we can sign off. I'm just going to share my screen quickly, just so that people are aware of some upcoming other LMA options. If I can figure out how to share my screen. Screen one. Let's see if this shares. Are you all able to see the LMA mid-year membership offer? I hope so.
No, I can't. It just says Sarah started screen sharing, but I can't see what you've got shared.
Interesting. Well, I'm not sure if I am, but if I'm not, I'll just talk about it. We have a mid-year membership offer for those of you, if you are not members and you'd like to get some information on becoming a member of LMA. It's 50% off. It gives you access to the full benefits of being an LMA member for the second half of the year. So you can see what as a member you have access to, including body of knowledge, including these webinars, and connecting with other legal marketers all across Canada, the United States, everywhere, which is really great. To Simone's point about having that research and bringing that, it's kind of nice to go to your stakeholders or your partners with this is what this other firm's doing. I spoke to my colleague in wherever, so it's really great for you to help out with if you're pitching something and you're trying to get buy-in for that. We also have a couple of upcoming webinars. We have Ask Me Anything President Edition this Thursday from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you attend that because you can ask them anything. So it'll be very interesting to hear from some of our colleagues who've been in legal marketing and who have experience and knowledge to share. So sign up for that one as well. And we also have a business development for lawyers facing modern challenges for the Canadian legal landscape on Thursday, July 28th from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern as well. So those are some upcoming webinars for you to attend. If you sign up for that membership, of course, you'll be able to attend those. I believe generally they're complimentary when you're a member. Don't quote me on that, but I think they are complimentary if you're a member. And thanks again to Simone so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. And thank you everyone for attending. And thanks again to our sponsors, Key Media, Lexper Canadian Lawyer. And we will see you all at the next LMA webinars.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of summer.